So today we're going to learn how to use the NMR. So the first thing Elaine is going to show you is to how to set our sample within the NMR spinner. Be careful not to press from the top because you don't want to put one of these NMR tubes through your hand. That would be incredibly painful. Okay, so now what you want to do is to come over to the carousel and place your NMR tube and spinner in one of the open containers. Oop, right here. There we go. And now using the blue button here, press that until you've rotated the carousel around to where your sample is underneath the injection tube. When your sample's near the injection tube, go back to the console and have a seat. So first things first, you always want to make sure to take off your gloves so that we don't cross-contaminate the keyboard. And we'll then inject our sample into the magnet. To do this, in the command line, which is right down here, you type the letters EJ for eject, or excuse me, IJ for inject. Okay, hit enter. Your sample then will rise up, travel over to the magnet, and then inject. After your sample is injected, you're going to want to set up a new experiment by typing EDC Echo Delta Charlie into the command line and pressing enter. The first thing you want to do is change the experiment name by including your names and a description of what the material you're taking the NMR is of. Okay. You want to hit the button Execute Get ProSol and change the title of your experiment down here. If you need to have a different type of experiment other than what's pressed in the experiment button, you can select and pick an experiment from the list here. Typically your instructor will have done this for you though, so just hit close. Okay, hit OK. And this creates your new experiment window. The next thing we want to do is we want to lock the instrument in on the chloroform or the deuterium signal of our chloroform by pressing LOCK or lock. Just make sure it's lowercase. On the command line, hitting enter. We can then select the solvent that we're using within our sample. And so in this case, we'll select CdCl3 or deuterochloroform. Hit OK. So while this is locking, we'll bring up our lock panel, which shows the lock, and our control panel, which allows us for shimming. The two buttons we use are here, so it has a little keyhole for lock, and then the one right next to the left of it is our control panel for shimming. Okay. When your lock is complete, you need to shim the sample or correct the magnetic field locally at the sample. And so we're going to do this in this class for Z, Z squared, and Z cubed. So to start, press on Z, and then you're going to step up and down to maximize the intensity of our sample. If your intensity gets too close to the top, you can drop the gain by pressing gain on your control panel and stepping down until your intensity is about halfway up the lock panel. Then you go back to Z and continue shimming. don't you bring the gain down again? And then continue to shim. Bring the gain down again and continue to shim. Your shimming signal was just a little far off from normal. This can sometimes happen if two samples are very different in the NMR, so the previous sample may have been more or less concentrated. Okay, one last time, bring that gain down again, about halfway to here. That looks good. So now keep shimming on Z. Okay, I think we've reached our maximum. So just go back in the other direction, like 1 or 2 clicks. There we go. So now do the same thing for Z squared. This shouldn't take as long though. There we go. So go back and reshim Z, just because now Z squared has changed. Okay. So we've now maximized our sample, and you can see that the signal compared to where we started for is much higher and tighter. So what we'll do is now click on our experimental window, which is behind that, to bring that back up to the forefront. And then we're going to tell the computer to set the receiver gain. So type RGA and hit enter. While that's working, we can tell the computer how many scans we'd like to take. So type NS, hit enter, and we'll type 8 and hit OK. When the bottom left-hand corner, right here, which is our dialog box, says finished, we can go ahead and start the experiment by typing ZG in our command line. After about 50 seconds, our NMR will be run. First thing that happens is the NMR runs a couple of dummy scans and discards the data. And then it will run 8 individual scans, averaging them to get your signal. The first thing that's going to pop up on the screen is what's referred to as the free induction decay, or FID. This data will then need to be transformed into a form that is usable for interpretation. So after our acquisition has finished, we will need to transform the data using a Fourier transform. So to do this, we click in the command line and type EF, hit enter, and then we'll phase correct the data by typing APK. After this, your experiment is done. Fantastic. Thanks, guys.